Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday Night Astro Chat. Today, we're going to talk about Pluto. I'm just going to get myself set up on, oh my gosh, my mic's on this side. Oops. I'm just going to get set up on Instagram just quickly. Thanks so much. Just going to check. I am now live. Okay. Now I am officially live. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Wednesday night's Astro Chat. As I mentioned in the very long description of my YouTube title, we're going to be talking about a couple of things that are happening astrologically today. So last night, quick story. Last night, I actually went to almost like a Pluto hole. Which is ironic, right? Because Pluto is Hades, so represents the underworld. And so from that perspective, you're falling into a hole is kind of like, oh, yeah, that's Pluto for you. So I just found out some very interesting, I have a very interesting aspect in my birth chart just in regards to Pluto and my sun. And it just kind of explained a lot of stuff in terms of how I deal with change. And that's kind of like what we're going to be talking about today, is that because Pluto represents transformation and represents change. So from that perspective, you want to we're going to have to understand what Pluto is doing right now, as well as what Pluto means for you in terms of your chart, in terms of you personally, as we're going through that Pluto retrograde. So the card pull is going to be for two things, because we've got two things astrologically happening right now. 1 second. Let's see here. Nope. I just need to. No questions yet. Okay. Wonderful. Just checking everything, checking all my settings. All right. So I'm just going to go over the astrological chart of the moment right now as it stands. So the sun is currently in Capricorn. The moon is in Leo. Mercury is in Aquarius. Venus is in Capricorn. Mars is in Sagittarius. And Jupiter is in Pisces. Saturn is at 14 degrees Aquarius. Uranus is in Taurus. It's been there for a while and causing a lot of disruption. Neptune is in Pisces, as well as Pluto is in Capricorn. The North Node is in Taurus. So that is one of the astrological events that's happening right now. And then Chiron is in Aries. Actually, that's an interesting thing to talk about as well, but that's not going to be what we're talking about today. The ascendant is in Virgo, and the midheaven is in Gemini. So right now, there's so much to talk about. I've been doing so much research and deep diving into astrology and what's been kind of going on right now, just because it's kind of been a crazy time right now. And from that perspective, what do I mean by it's a crazy time right now, right? What I mean is that Pluto is going to go into retrograde. So we basically have been starting to feel the effects of Pluto going retrograde. And I'm just going to pull up something quickly in terms of Pluto being retrograde. Yeah, so this is all about Pluto entered the pre-retrograde phase on January 6, 2022, just this year, at 6:26 a.m. So January 6th, that's when we basically had the effects in the beginning of Pluto going retrograde. So it's not retrograde just yet. It's going to be on retrograde April 29th. So just because, it happens on that day, it doesn't mean that, you're not feeling the effects before that time. So it's actually a feeling of, I don't want to say grimness, but I was looking when I was doing my research last night about Pluto. It was all about it's just a lot of transformation. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of power, right? It can be a bit subversive, just also because Pluto is all about like death and beginnings and endings. And so it's going to be retrograde from April 29th up until October 8th. So it's all going to be throughout the summer. And so what that means is that it's going to resurface old wounds. There's going to be emotions that have been dormant for months that may like come up to the surface. The retrograde is happening in Capricorn, which I feel like everything is going retrograde in Capricorn right now. Let's see. Yeah, we had the Mercury retrograde, which we did the card pull for last week. So we survived that, but it was literally on Friday, and I could totally feel the effects of Mercury retrograde. It just like happened all at once, and it was crazy. So there was that going retrograde. There was Venus is in retrograde, which makes me super sad, just because I'm ruled by Venus because of Taurus. But yeah. Let's see what else. Yes, so it's going back to Pluto being in retrograde. Now, as I said, it will resurface old wounds, and a lot of my research kind of showed was that it will be about healing our inner child and about repressed trauma and triggers. So, repressed trauma and triggers, right? So like Pluto's all about that, and it's a very challenging aspect. So Pluto itself as a planet represents regeneration, spiritual inclination, inner psyche, and a hidden struggle for power. And it's a generational sign. And what that means is that when Pluto sits in a chart, you'll have a generation of people that also sit within that position of the chart. So, for example, Pluto was in Scorpio from between 1984, like late 1984, November 1984, till 1993. And what does that mean to have a generational planet? So overall, it does mean that a specific generation, and you'll notice this very kind of pointedly when you say like the boomer generation. So Pluto in Scorpio is kind of known as the millennial generation. It's still weird to me to think of myself as that, but I guess I am a millennial. But it is from 1985 to 1993. So there's a lot of like growing up in the 90s, which is becoming like this huge resurgence that's coming back, right? So like we now have, those really flared jeans that like I used to wear back in like Winnipeg, and it's really funny just because it was in Winnipeg, and if you think about today, so today being winter and the fact that all of the snow from the snow is now just like melting, it's now causing all these puddles. And so I basically had to like jump over the puddles and had to like dodge things to kind of like get anywhere safely. But where was I going with this in terms of puddles and it being messy? And okay, wasn't important. Probably wasn't the great tangent. But oh yes, because of the bell bottom, the jeans. So I was talking about resurgences of generations. So like that flared jeans trend. My mom was pretty hip, and so she used to always get us these silver jeans. We used to go to these like cool like fashion warehouses and get like really stylish jeans for cheaper. And I used to have the best jeans. But also if you had like messy like whatevers, you had to like try to tuck all of this like flare into a boot, or just run the risk of having the whole bottoms be messy. So Anyways, let's go into the generational signs. I also have an extra flavor of having Saturn and Pluto both being in Scorpio. That's a whole other thing that I'll talk about on my blog, but there's extra elements when you think about Saturn being in Scorpio as well, in terms of like discipline and authority and dealing with the subversive nature of human beings and psyches. Okay, so then there's going to be a new moon coming up in Aquarius on February 1st. So at the end of the month, it kind of ends things kind of nicely. So February 1st, there's going to be a new moon in Aquarius. And today, what is today? No, yesterday, the true node went into Taurus on Jan 18th. So we're kind of feeling the effects right now because it's going to be there for 18 months. And so basically the true node is going to be in Taurus, and then the south node, which is its opposite, is in Scorpio. So what does that mean in terms of an axis point shifting in consciousness? I think it's quite significant right now, right? Because we're going from mutable signs into fixed signs. So things are going to feel a lot more stable. If you think about the way the world has kind of been over the last couple of years, it's been the only thing that you could kind of count on was that you couldn't count on anything. And it was just constantly in flux and constantly changing. It's constantly all of that. So, yeah, constantly in flux, all of that kind of happening, all of that. So, what does that then mean for us overall? I'm just going to do a little reading over what this kind of means. So the North Node and South Node are not celestial bodies. They are mathematical points in the sky. And so in modern astrology, these points are linked to fate, karmic lessons, and ultimate fulfillment of a soul's desire. The nodes are exactly opposite one another. The sign of the South Node represents archetypes that have been mastered, and the sign of the North Node represents archetypes. Hello. The sign of the North Node represents archetypes that need to be embodied, and they're tied with our life's purpose. So that's kind of like in terms of your life's purpose and what things need to be archetyped. That's what we have now moved our North Node into. So we are now in Taurus, which is like my sun sign, which makes me super happy. Let's talk about a little bit more about what these axes mean. These axes, or these nodes, are an axis of growth. So our natal charts, when you're getting like a birth chart reading, they show us our personal nodal story and the arc of development that we have incarnated into, right? So it's like a blueprint of when you first kind of came into this existence. So it shows us the chapter of development we are in, the areas and topics of life that are due for deeper exploration. This work is done collectively, our outer reality becoming a macrocosm of what we grapple with personally. The nodes can underscore the specific themes that confront a society, weaving into our collective development the productive and unproductive potential of a sign's energy. The signs of the nodes are a sign of the times. So it means that the times are going to dramatically change right now. So think of the transiting North Node as what gains and the transiting South Node as what drains. And so generally the sign of the North Node tells us what themes can be increased and get amplified, and the sign of the South Node tells us which themes can decrease or need to be detached from. The sign of the North Node can provide an antidote to the distortions of the sign of the South Node, representing what we collectively need to balance and reach for. And so this dichotomy can show up in literal and symbolic ways. And this is when we saw the South Node was traveling through Sagittarius. Over the last year, we saw a decrease in our ability to travel. So there's all that kind of stuff that kind of shows up in terms of the collective society behaving, instead of just like what it is on your personal chart. And so bringing it back to Pluto, in terms of that planet being in retrograde and healing your inner child, I'm going to now do a bit of a card pull to kind of, I think you want to ask yourself where Pluto and Neptune sit in your chart, and that will kind of, your age will kind of dictate that, and you kind of know what generation you're in. It's kind of, you can kind of look that up and see what that kind of means. But what can be of more importance, more important is how it reacts to significant planets in your chart. I'm a Taurus, so your sun sign and what that sits in will make a particular kind of angle or aspect depending on you, with, let's say, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, which are the generational planets. So on their own, the generational planets will be, yes, tell you how a certain flavor of a generation. And that's why you'll find that certain friends and certain generations, like I do find that, like, you know, my like late 80s babies, early 90s babies, like, yeah, we get like, there's just certain things like from a nostalgic standpoint, we get understand each other on and kind of vibe, because we kind of came into this incarnation at the same time, right? And so we have a specific energy from that particular planet. But in terms of it reacting with your sun or your moon or your ascendant, that's where there can be some really interesting things in, and with Pluto especially, it can be how you deal with change, flux, transformation, the idea of death, and that can be from a person, like death in terms of your self death, if that makes sense. So like your ego death, or let's say you're transforming yourself, right? So let's say people with a challenging aspect against Pluto in both their sun and moon can sometimes experience challenges with change, right? And or transformation. And not to say that, I say like it's just a challenge, right? And a lot of what my research has kind of showed me is that while this is, you know, challenging, difficult, you can also then use it to grow and use it to have lessons learned, so that you can take what you've kind of like built up, or like take what you've learned through going through the fire, so to speak, to come out the other side transformed, right? Because Pluto is also about endings, but is also about beginnings as well. So here we go. We're gonna go into the card pull now. Just had to do my little preamble because I fell in, as I said, Pluto hole. The moon is in Leo right now. Be friends with that, lunar Leos. And Leo's opposite is actually Aquarius. I don't know why I always forget that, but all right. My lovely, and I also picked up a ton of incense today. It's great. And I was able to also pick up an appropriate shell for my saging, so that's good too. This thing, I also got that from there as well. A proper home for my tarot decks. You need to keep them in a special place because they have energy to be protected, right? Like, it's just like, we watched this crazy movie, meaning Heaven. It was from it was Thailand. I believe it was Thailand, but it was crazy. It was like film documentary style, and it was like, yeah, crazy. But yeah, if you open yourself up, it's like you just also have to be remember. Oh yes, one of my favorite astrologers said that, like, astrology is agnostic, and I agree with that. It's about how you frame it or put things into things, or put meaning into things, right? Okay, so we're going to do a card pull for every element, just because I launched my Warrior Goddess training, finally, monthly workout. So these are online programs, and I do have everything, all the details are in my bio. I'm going to be running Tuesday live workouts, kind of like virtual classroom style, that you will of course get. Ooh, Wolfie, are you okay? That you of course get access to, and what else? I think. Well, you get all of the workout programs, right? And so it's basically 4 weeks, and there's 4 workouts per week, and each workout has to do with an element. And for example, earth being grounding, stability, and just like in the tarot deck, those are pentacles. And then next we've got where is it? Yeah, so earth grounding, so those would be like deadlifts, right? Squats and stuff. And then fire is like cardio or like really crazy HIIT workouts, because you want to think about like burning, fire, all of that kind of stuff. And that is wands in the tarot deck. And then next we've got water, which is like flexibility, mobility, you know, like Bruce Lee says, like be like water, and that is cups in the tarot deck. And then we finally have air, which in this case, in terms of the workouts, air or wind is about being technical. So anything that has to do with exercises that you have to do, like stabilizing on one foot, let's say, and there's, let's say, or maybe complexes or things that have to do with using different motor skills in different kind of formats. So like more intellectual kind of workouts, if that makes sense. But also to use like the small little muscle groups that normally that don't that sometimes get ignored. Okay, so let's do the poll. I have to tap out early tonight because I want to take a bath. Got new bath bombs from Lush, so all right. I'm going to do a poll for, what order should I do this? Let's do Earth first. And to recap, we're going to do a poll to consider what we need to work on, think about, prepare for in terms of the Pluto retrograde that we are currently feeling that shadow of, and how we're going to prepare to deal with any kind of old wounds that come up. Because there's ways you can prepare for it so you're not blindsided when it does come up. Or I don't know, let's say like an old flame enters your life and you're not necessarily prepared to deal with like the emotional repercussions of that, and like maybe you start something you shouldn't start or should start, but like it's just like also just be aware of the way that the energy will make you feel at this time, right? So Pluto is going through retrograde, means a ton of transformation, a ton of power, a ton of flex. So this poll is going to be for each element in terms of how you're going to prepare for that and how you're going to prepare to kind of heal your inner child going through that transformation period, because you learn and transform by like looking at your past, right? At least I think so. All right, so we're going to start with earth signs, as I said. And so earth signs are Tauruses, Capricorns, and Virgos. I didn't know this, but we're not all fixed signs either. More about fixed and mutable signs later, because that also has to do with how you're going to experience the changing of the nodes. So, for our earth signs, we have a pull of 3 of Pentacles. Let's do two card pulls just because I've been also learning a lot more about tarot, and from that perspective, you usually want to have at least another card for one card is not enough to derive meaning from, right? You need to, like, especially with the minor arcana, it needs to have something bounce against, right? So we're going to do 2 card pull. So we've got the 3 of Pentacles, and this flipped over for me, so I guess that's what it's going to be. All right, earth signs, my Tauruses, my Virgos. My Capricorns, we are still in Capricorn season. We're out of Capricorn. This is our last day in Capricorn season, right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's our last day in Capricorn season. We are entering Aquarius tomorrow. So earth signs, how we're going to deal with the upcoming Pluto retrograde, which we're starting to feel that shadow, right, on the 6th. So we're trying to like work through what are these old wounds, what are we trying to deal with that'll help us transform and move forward and become a better person, right? So we've got the 8 of Wands. This my YouTube folks. My gosh, kind of see. And we've got the 3 of Pentacles. So I have my tarot decoder. Okay. We've got the 8 of Wands. So wands also represent fire and the fire signs. So in terms of this perspective, we've got these little foxes looking up at this lady blowing out dandelion seeds into the wind. So if I had to interpret it from the card itself, and let's see from the official interpretation, the 8 of Wands, it can be sudden change and progress are the keynotes of this card, which indicates the end of a delay, unexpected news, and foreign travel, especially by air. It can also mean the arrows of love. So I guess it means kind of like sudden change and progress, which is kind of like the key themes of when you're thinking of transformation and change, right? So I would say that plus the 3 of Pentacles, and Pentacles, of course, represent Earth. So the 3 of Pentacles, this is the card of recognition. In career or work, suggesting training and professionalism, successful business or commercial expansion, monetary reward, and artistic ability that brings renown. So when reversed, it can mean lack of direction and ignorance. So I think if we have this and this together in terms of Pluto retrograde for the earth signs, I think something to kind of 3 of Pentacles is like recognition in career or work. So, and the 8 of Wands is all about sudden change or perhaps arrows of love. So anytime like movement or change. So from my perspective, this interpretation looks like for earth signs, you're going to look at like perhaps a change in career or career or training, successful business or commercial expansion. So perhaps just a shift in gears when it comes to what you do for work. And perhaps maybe your work is going to be able to be a little bit more play or like, so something to think about with Pluto transforming, usurping and changing things around. It's a good time to kind of think about maybe an old business idea, or maybe if you think about yourself as a child, like maybe you always wanted to be like, I don't know, an astronaut. And so maybe think back to that. And so what does that mean for your career right now? Maybe you can do something else that has to do with space, and maybe you still do have that kind of love. And like, maybe that means that you should shift your career into do something that is a little bit more aligned with what your passions and what your true self is. So that's my interpretation for my earth signs. In terms of the card pull, we've got 3 of Pentacles and 8 of Wands in terms of, Pluto going retrograde and you dealing with that transformation. And so thinking about a shift in what you do for work or career towards something that you're maybe a bit more passionate about. You only live once, right? So, okay, so next we're going to do the pull for our water signs. I don't know why I picked water signs, just came to me. I love water signs too, because the emotion, the depths. My Wolfie is Cancer and he's a water sign. So the emotions, passion. So our water signs, as a reminder, they are Cancer, they're Scorpio, they're Pisces. So they are that emotional depths. Yes, you can use Scorpio. Scorpio does have those in deep dark emotional depths. They will also try to sometimes make it seem like they don't have those depths, but they do. Okay. They're good at hiding it. They're like the psychologists of the zodiac. Okay, so our water signs. So Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces for our Pluto retrograde. We're going to do a 2-card pull for each of the elements. First card is the Sun and the 3 of Swords. So the Sun. I love major arcana pulls. The Sun. The Sun. Wish you got more sun. I can't deal with this whole like winter situation. It's like the worst. Okay, the Sun. Success and happiness are the themes of this card. It can denote health, opportunity, triumph through energy, especially in art and science, gratitude, and wealth. Although weakened when reversed, which it was theoretically reversed, but I wasn't going to do any reverse pulls today. It is never strongly negative. It can signify a need for self-knowledge or a lack of confidence. So in this perspective, it's success and happiness. It's health, triumph through energy in art, science. I always think of like Apollo when I think of the sun. So the god of like the sun and rationality and logical thought. And so the triumphs of that too, being able to problem solve. So being able to finally make it through or fix or think through a problem. So the sun is very powerful to have in terms of Pluto, because the sun also represents your ego in terms of the mask that you show to the world. Whew, throat's going. Too much talking. Okay, so the sun represents your ego and also like what you're presenting out to the world, right? So if you're thinking from that in terms of Pluto, it's about what are those things that have maybe held you back in the past that you can kind of now bring out to the surface and use that to transform and move forward. But of course, we have another card that we pulled, right? So it's 3 of Swords. Wands, Pentacles, Swords. So swords are my air signs. So you want to think about the double-edged sword, right? You can have a mind that is like quick like a whip, but it can also wound like a sword, right? So 3 of Swords is all about, this card means upheaval and sorrow, but it has also the connotation, so the meaning of clearing ground for something new, which is, I think, really fitting for our water signs in terms of the Pluto retrograde and breaking ground for something new, because Pluto's all about death, so it's also about rebirth as well. So burning down to make way for new, or like, when you like have farmland and you're trying to make it fertile, you need to sometimes like burn things or compost or to make that soil fertile to grow new things. So 3 of Swords with the sun, I think it's all about burning down any kind of old paradigms or things that have previously held you back, and then bringing to the surface into the sun new growth, right? Because you're going to have the power of that sun to help you out through this Pluto retrograde. So don't get down into the darkness. Think about the light and the thing. And even though things may seem like, oh my gosh, really crazy as things are burning, know that it is creating something fertile and nourishing for what will come after. So use the time wisely as things are burning down to find brightness in the madness. There's beauty in the breakdown kind of situation, because there comes the sun at the end. We always win in the end, right? Okay. Next, so that was for our water signs. Next, we're going to go to our air signs, because I always leave them last and I always forget about them. Air signs tend to have elevated ways of thinking, so it can be a challenge in terms of sometimes partnership living up to certain idealisms. So air signs, as a reminder, are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So super smart, super intellectual, very analytical, all about the inspiration to things. So for our air signs, in terms of the Pluto retrograde, it can sometimes be tough, I would think, just because Instead of kind of like being able to like just let go emotionally, you can just overthink things too much and just kind of be in your head a little bit too much. So there's that. Okay, so air signs, let's do the pull. We've got the High Priestess, air signs, and the Star. So 2 major cards, which I love. So Gemini, Libras, and Aquariuses. Also Aquariuses, it's your time to shine. Tomorrow, as soon as we hit I don't know exactly when it shifts, because it's not just like midnight, right? There's the actual time when the planets actually move into the new sign. So the sun will be moving into Aquarius tomorrow. The High Priestess is the 3rd card in the deck. I love her. She's like she's my favorite card. It's a card of deep mystery and duality. The High Priestess can denote inner perception, strong artistic and creative abilities, a thirst for learning, and a desire for independence. So it's all about looking towards inspiration and just that higher knowledge of Gaia and nature and your astral self, your highest self. So even in this card, you can kind of see the High Priestess is like on top of an owl, seeking out knowledge. He's holding a pomegranate, so the knowledge of like life after death. And so from that perspective, with Pluto going retrograde, the High Priestess is a very powerful card to also have, because I think it's from a air sign that they want to think about thinking past your mental state and going much more into feeling things out, and then also just like the higher mental state. And also try not to think yourself into a problem. The star also represents it represents Aquarius. So it's a beautiful card, actually. Just a water bearer, and the stars above. So hope, love, and rebirth are the themes of this card. It indicates a love of humanity, optimism, friendship reciprocated, from promises, good health, insight, guidance from above. So it's about kind of like on really, really like intuition. That was the word that I was looking for. Intuition. It's all about being able to trust your intuition and feel into that. And so with the High Priestess on your side, as Pluto goes through its transformation period, I think it's up to you, air signs. So my Geminis, Libras, Aquariuses out there, to get out of your head and try to go to like your intuition. So in terms of what is your gut telling you? You want to know, because the star is all about following your star, following like your North Star, like knowing like your own true North node as to what is right. And the High Priestess is all about, I would say, like the knowledge that is beyond this realm. She sits above all of that. So I think it's a matter of these together. Just air signs focus on intuition, right? And less of like, and use that and bring that to the surface. All right. Finally, we have air signs. So air signs are, of course, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. I don't know why I was thinking of I was going to say Scorpio for some reason, but of course I just talked about how Scorpio is actually a water sign. But yes, it has Mars as an old ruler, and that's why people sometimes think of it as a fire sign, but it just has that same intensity. So fire signs, yes, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. I love fire signs. Okay, so for the Pluto retrograde coming up, it starts officially going retrograde the end of April 30th, I believe. Here we go. The Devil. Let's see here. It's a cool card. Yeah. And the Chariot. So that, there's unicorn. Well, yeah, kind of unicorns. See that? Yeah. Okay, so the Devil. The Devil card is a powerful and largely negative card. I'm gonna choose not to take that interpretation in terms of this. I think that there's almost like a fallen hero kind of aspect to the Devil card. The Devil can imply carnal excess, self-indulgence, greed, destruction, and sudden historical events. It can also indicate energy, humor, and sensuality, but its outcome can depend on other cards. And this goes back to why I'm taking the 2-card pull approach, just because many cards do depend on the effect of other cards in order to understand the meaning of what it's trying to tell you, what the universe is trying to tell you, right? Okay, so the Devil and the Chariot. So the Chariot, actually not very familiar. I don't get this pull very often. So I'm glad that we're learning about it together. Okay, so the Chariot. This card has implications of struggle and triumph against the odds. It can also denote prestige and wealth through sustained effort. It also indicates unexpected news by word of mouth and fast, luxurious travel, which I don't think is happening anybody. And then if reversed, it's a warning: control, physical passions, vanity, ruthlessness. It suggests the collapse of plans. So I'm not doing any reverse pulls for this in terms of Pluto retrograde, because it's all about burning everything down anyways. So let's not go towards like any kind of reverse energies from that. So we've got struggle and triumph against the odds, which is very powerful with the Devil. So you've got that power and energy from the Devil card. We're leaving Capricorn today, but it does represent Capricorn as well. It also represents that aspect of like the underworld and the dark side and the shadow. And so I would say it's all about deriving power from your shadow fire signs. So Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, try not to ignore your shadow. This is for fire signs. Yes, for fire signs. So Leos, for our Pluto retrograde with the Devil and the Chariot. Chariot is triumph against all odds, right? So you have that kind of energy on your side as you undergo transformation. So I would say it's from using your shadow as a source of power instead of ignoring it. And it's all about using sometimes like those negative emotions and then converting them in a creative way. And it turns into something beautiful as a result, and something that contributes to the whole of humanity as well, right? So I think that's a great pull. And so yes, with the Devil card, you can kind of harness that energy. So the Devil does also warn of like excess, right? Because like, you know, the rich and famous, that kind of situation. Also weird things with Hollywood stuff. Not going to go into that just yet. But great pull. Use your shadow as your power to move forward through a transformation for the Pluto retrograde coming up in the spring. And in terms of even healing your inner child, sometimes when you're a kid, right? Like I think of myself too, like you have these ideas in terms of the way the world works, and it kind of gets dashed or shattered in some sort of way because you're kind of told to almost repress your shadow or certain aspects of it or not really understand it. And this goes for all signs, all of us as kids, right? You know, as you try to like struggle to make your way and grow up. So I think it's a matter of looking back to the lessons that you know, like that child that we left behind, and we should never forget how to play. We should never forget how to dream, how to imagine, how to think creatively and out of the box, outside of a box, or to even conceive of ideas that haven't even been thought of yet, right? Ever. And I think it's a matter of like in a world where we've been so like homogenized, right? And then everything's just like the same and like efficient and like, oh, like it's so boring, you know? Like, so I would say we would take this Pluto transformation, embrace the change, embrace the craziness, embrace the system burning down, embrace all of it going to heck, because from that burnt bits on the ground, it's fertilizer for new, fresh growth. And also just taking a look at all of our own selves and thinking about things and old patterns and loops that are very comforting, but maybe don't serve us very well. Okay, and so with that, love to thank you for joining me on today's Astro Chat. I'm going to be having some, I would say, patrons only astro content coming up, as well as like some other talks about certain things that'll be up specifically on Patreon, as well as some specifically exclusive like dance stuff, concept videos coming up. So all of that will be coming up on the next Astro Chat, just more details about that. But thank you everybody for joining me and for these card pulls. This will be available in terms of a recording on my YouTube channel as well as on Instagram, so you can take a look back in terms of your pull, and so that you can kind of be prepared for the upcoming Pluto retrograde. Thanks all. Thank you for joining. Bye.